Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Salt Lake City Snowhawks expansion franchise here on Madden 25. Today we're going to conclude our Year 3 season. Our Snowhawks are eliminated from playoff contention this year, so now 0 for 3 when it comes to reaching the playoffs in the first 3 years of this franchise. But we're looking up despite a very down year where we finished 4-13, well below our expectations, as we landed the number 3 overall pick in the ensuing 2027 NFL draft. I think we're on to now. But before that, we do need to simulate through this postseason. We're going to take a look at end-of-season awards, league leaders, and wrap up with our own player statistics as well. So looking over in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens did secure the number 1 seed. And then in the 2-7, we'll have Buffalo hosting Cleveland. In the 3-6, we'll have Denver, who takes the AFC West this season, as they'll host the Cincinnati Bengals. Then we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking the AFC South for the first time under the Trevor Lawrence tenure, as they'll host the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champions who had to settle for a wild card spot this year. And over in the NFC, for the third straight season, the Philadelphia Eagles have secured the top seed. In the 2-7, we'll have Tampa Bay against Minnesota. In the 3-6, we'll have the Rams, who took the NFC West for the first time in this franchise from San Francisco, as they'll host the Detroit Lions. And in the 4-5, we'll have Chicago, who won the NFC North for the first time under the Caleb Williams tenure, as they'll host the San Francisco 49ers. And with that, we'll get right into it and advance through Wildcard weekend. But before that, actually, I forgot we have Mock Draft 3 to take a look at real quick, as the Patriots did get the number 1 overall pick, and they're projected to go with Leonard Bailey, pass rusher out of USC. Then at number 2, Tyson Wakefield, the top overall prospect in the draft, projected there to go to the New Orleans Saints, signal caller there out of Notre Dame. And at number 3, they have us going Chance Rodriguez, but as emphasized in the past couple episodes when doing these mock drafts, the AI just, it just takes the top player that we have on our draft board. And unfortunately, in this year, you can't reorder your draft board. You have to just take everyone off and then throw them back on there in the order that you want. So for all intents and purposes, we have Chance Rodriguez at the top right now, but of course we're going to change that before the draft as we assemble our draft board. But we have the number 3 pick, and if it all goes to form here with Bailey and Wakefield at 1-2, I think we would go Zach Joseph here, who is projected number 4 to Seattle, pass rusher out of Michigan. We have him 80% scouted. We did our super focused scouting on him, I think the last episode of the episode before, but he looks to be a very good pass rusher and looks like he'll live up to that top 5 projection in terms of talent as well. At number 5, Jimmy Gallery, the Heisman-winning two-way player there from Notre Dame, played corner and receiver, part of that team that had Tyson Wakefield, the number 1 quarterback in the draft. Jimmy Gallery all the way up to number 5, as he's projected to the Titans. Then Percy Bronson, he was the number 1 overall pick, projected back in mock draft 1 to Carolina, but now projected at number 6 to Pittsburgh, followed by Lance Shivers, pass rusher out of Ohio State, to the Raiders. And then we have a couple safeties here, Kari Boone out of USC to the Dolphins, and then another safety here, Eric Wimbley out of UCLA, but Boone actually out of USF, not USC. Walter Kidd, the second corner here in the top 10, so 4 DBs here in the top 10. Walter Kidd was the top corner all season, but was recently passed up by Jimmy Gallery after a strong end to the season, which of course captured him the Heisman Trophy. So Kidd here, number 10 to the Panthers. And then Markel Pierman, the top receiver out of USC, projected here to the Colts. Someone we do kind of like, but just not, a skill set warranted to take there in the top 10. Braxton Thomas, the top tackle, goes off the board there at 12 to the Giants. And the Cowboys looking to get their successor to Dak Prescott as they go Ben Davis, 13th overall out of Fresno State, would join David Carr as another first-round quarterback there out of Fresno State. Philip Lang, wide receiver to Washington. Joel Adams, the top center in the class, projected to the Falcons. Quincy Valentine, top D tackle to Green Bay. They have the Jets going right tackle here in Lonnie Battle. Santiago Diaz to the Vikings. Jason Kirkpatrick, who we do like as well. We did our super focused scouting on him, which also included the aforementioned Zach Joseph. We'll see if we can get a lineman in free agency, but if not, Kirkpatrick might be someone we target. Tommy Elliott, another top safety in this class, all the way down at 20 for the Jags. Another first rounder here out of Notre Dame. JoJo Presley, corner to Cleveland. Isaiah Kerr, power rusher to Detroit. Another safety here in the first round, Mario Mentor out of Virginia Tech to the Chicago. Another corner here, Melo Gillespie out of UCLA to the Bengals. Carter Harris, guard to the Chiefs. We actually have him on our draft board. Jaleel Holmes, D tackle out of Texas A&M to Denver. Another safety here, Tevin Graham to San Francisco. Ahmad Woodson, maybe the top off-ball linebacker in the draft, projected all the way down here to Buffalo. Luke Day, a receiver, someone we also have on our watch list. We definitely want a receiver, whether in free agency or the draft. Jeffrey Lynch, a top interior lineman to the Rams. And then Mike Cheeks here at 31, projected to Baltimore, the draft's top running back. And then all the way down at 32, as we do have the Eagles' first-round pick. So we're hoping for an early exit for them to, launch us up into the mid-20s or so. But they project us going Darren Mackey, who I guess is the best player available according to our draft board. But, of course, just a potential undrafted free agent. We are going to have to rework our board as we go into the offseason. So with that, we can now advance into division weekend, and we'll take a look at the wild card results here. As we'll take a look at the playoff bracket as Cleveland upsets Buffalo 24-20, and that's got to be Cleveland's first playoff win in 2 decades, maybe even more than that. Denver does win against Cincinnati 28-13, and the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs handle the Jags 42-20. As we're going to get an AFC West matchup here between the Broncos and Chiefs, and then Baltimore and Cleveland there in an AFC North matchup. So AFC North and AFC West, the only teams left standing, as we get 2 wild card wins there, or 2 lower seeded wins there in that first round. Then over in the NFC, we have Tampa Bay just barely edges out Minnesota 19-14. Detroit upsets the Rams 24-10, and San Francisco in a high scoring matchup defeats Chicago 40-34. So we're going to have Philly against Detroit, Tampa Bay against San Francisco, as we're 1 round away from the championship rounds in each respective conference. And with that, we'll now simulate into the other round here, going into the second to last round of this year 3 season. Of course, the NFC Championship, AFC Championship's about to go down as Cleveland upsets the number 1 seed Baltimore Ravens, and for the 3rd straight season, the Eagles fall as the number 1 seed. They fail to reach the Super Bowl as they fall to the Detroit Lions. So also in the AFC, Denver upsets Kansas City, even though they were the higher seed. You got to think the Chiefs were the favorite in that one, as we're going to have Denver and Cleveland in the AFC Championship. No one could have predicted that. And then in the NFC, we're going to have Tampa Bay against Detroit as the Buccaneers edge out San Francisco by 4 points. But good news for us as the Eagles do get eliminated, so that pick is going to go up quite a bit for us, maybe 4 spots or so at least, as we'll now work it into Pro Bowl week. Trying to get through this episode quickly, set up the ensuing offseason episode, which of course I'm always excited for. As we'll take another look at the playoff bracket here, and Tampa Bay, Denver, going to be Super Bowl, I think, 61 at this point, as the Broncos win 27-10 over the bottom-seeded Cleveland Browns, and the 2-seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers win by a touchdown over Detroit. So Super Bowl, I think, 61, as I said, going to be between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Denver Broncos. But before we get there, we'll take a look at the Pro Bowl roster. I don't think we had any guys here, but we'll take a look. Will Evans, the quarterback 2 for the NFC, second-year quarterback out of North Carolina for the Rams, 3rd-round pick, and he makes the Pro Bowl. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes there for the AFC, as Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy also joining Evans there for the NFC. Top running backs are Saquon Barkley and Joe Mixon, respectively. Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs also for the NFC. Pacheco, Travis Etienne there for the AFC. Puka Nacua, the top receiver, joined there by Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. And then we have Khalil Shakir joining Jamar Chase, Rashee Rice, who's a pending free agent, and Wade Boone, second-year player, I believe, from Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. George Kittle, Dallas Goedert, the tight ends on the NFC. And then Weldon and Noah Gray makes it for the AFC there. Tight end for the Chiefs, Jordan Mailata, Laramie Tunsil, the starting left tackles. Landon Dickerson there, so 2 Eagles offensive linemen get starting spots on the NFC team. Joe Thuney there for the AFC, along with Quentin Nelson. Creed Humphrey, the starting center, opposed by Frank Ragnow for the NFC, who is going to be a free agent, so maybe someone we take a look at to bolster our offensive line. Eric McCoy, Tyler Linderbaum, Chris Lindstrom, Khalil Dotson, Elijah Vera Tucker, Panay Sewell, Joe Alt there for the AFC. Now going to defense, Aiden Hutchinson, who I believe is also a pending free agent, as the Lions just fell there in the NFC Championship, although they did take down the top-seeded Philadelphia Eagles. Montez Sweat, Derek Brown, Myles Garrett, Glenn Hancock, I think just a second-year player, was generated in one of our draft classes. Brian Breezy, Chris Jones, Ed Oliver, Jonathan Allen, Quinnen Williams, Max Crosby, TJ Watt. Malcolm Rodriguez makes it, I believe, of the Lions, along with Jared Verse, Omar Spates, Devin Lloyd, Ernest Jones IV, Brent Burns, Ali Highsmith. Just quickly going down, naming some names here as I see him. Marshawn Lattimore, J.C. Horn, Devon Witherspoon. Isaiah Rodgers makes it. I think he was a free agent signing. I forget with what team. I don't think he's still with the Eagles, though, as we've gone along. L'Jarius Sneed, Derek Stingley Jr., I think Lamar Harris, who was a generated player in one of our draft classes, Kirby Joseph, Justin Simmons, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Hufanga, Grant Delpit, Justin Reed, Elijah Molden, who I think was a free agent signing as well. I thought we were going to get maybe a kicker Pro Bowler there in Joshua Carty or maybe our punter in Matt Ariza, but neither make it, as Turner, Sands, Arnold, and Cooper, the returners for the Pro Bowl this year. We're now ahead into Super Bowl week, and now we'll take a look at the award winners as Josh Allen does secure the MVP award, followed by Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy. There in close contention. Nick Sirianni with the 16-1 record does win Coach of the Year despite not winning a playoff game. Now we'll go over to the NFC Offensive Player of the Year goes to Saquon Barkley, although Puka Nacua not too far behind him with Brock Purdy as the top quarterback. For Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year goes to Aiden Hutchinson. As we said, I think he is set to hit the free agent market and going to demand maybe $40-50 million annually, something to that figure. Montez Sweat, Derek Brown, Glenn Hancock, I think was a first-round pick of the Seahawks, if not last year, the year before that. Offensive Rookie of the Year does go to number 1 overall pick Byron Snow of the Seattle Seahawks. They have their quarterback of the future, one of the best up-and-coming players in the league. Ben Murray, top tight end here, finishes second out of Utah. Very good rookie season for the Rams, at least I think like 9 touchdown catches. Skylar Goddard, I think a running back for the Vikings. Glenn Tyson, quarterback for the Giants. DeMar Wilcox, I think, a receiver. Now, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Jerry Sexton wins it, our third-round pick out of Washington. He was inserted into the starting lineup within maybe the first 6-7 weeks or so, and then just tore it up. Going to be a very good tandem with Quay Walker going into next season. C.J. Daniels, a D-tackle for the Falcons. Tanner Ellsworth, I think, a defensive lineman for the Saints. Another Falcon up here, Kenny Schaefer. Another Saint as well, Aries Burgess. So the Saints get 2 in the top 5, as do the Falcons. But Jerry Sexton does win Defensive Rookie of the Year in the NFC. Brock Purdy, best quarterback. Best running back goes to Barkley. Best receiver, Puka Nacua. Best offensive lineman, Landon Dickerson. Aiden Hutchinson for best defensive lineman, Jared Verse. Best linebacker, best DB goes to Marshawn Latimer. Best kicker goes to Jake Elliott. Now we'll run through the AFC real quick. Lamar Jackson, Offensive Player of the Year. So Josh Allen wins MVP, but Lamar Jackson, Offensive Player of the Year in the NFC. Defensive Player of the Year goes to Myles Garrett, as I think he wins it for the second consecutive season. Offensive Rookie of the Year goes to David Madden, quarterback out of Nevada for the Jets. And then Nicholas Lake was number 2, a X-Factor tight end, a blocking tight end that the Broncos drafted in like the 3rd round. Also, Antoine Barrett, I think the top running back that was selected, ends up in the top 4. Damon Curley, a very good tight end prospect we were looking at, finishes at number 5 for the Dolphins. Defensive Rookie of the Year goes to J.R. Decker. I think he was a pass rusher out of Ohio State. DeAndre Weber, a corner we were trying to draft, but we couldn't work a trade up for him, unfortunately. B.J. Roan was a top 5 pick there to the Colts, I believe. Best quarterback goes to Josh Allen, also the MVP award winner. Isaiah Pacheco, top running back. Best receiver goes to Jamar Chase. Best lineman to Tyler Linderbaum. Best D lineman to Myles Garrett, of course. Best linebacker, Alex Highsmith. Best DB goes to DJ Turner II. Best kicker for Cameron Dicker the kicker, as that does it for yearly awards. So we're pretty much now set to advance through the Super Bowl and see who collects it this year, see who gets it there between the Broncos and Buccaneers. But we also do have 2 upgrade points now that Jerry Sexton was awarded. Defensive Rookie of the Year now goes up to Superstar Development, which he didn't have before, but now being Rookie of the Year, we do get that. So he is set to get a skill slot there, an ability slot, I think, with these next upgrades. But we'll take a look at his skills right now. 90 speed, 88 tackle. That block shed currently getting a 3-point boost up to 79 with 71 zone, 75 play rec. So I think we want that coverage to keep going up. Being that we do have 2 skill points to work with, we'll go past coverage and then just go right back to field general. Try and get that zone up to like 74, 75 if we can. And that does go up +2. The man goes up +1. And now we'll just go right back into field general. And as we do spread it out pretty well with the field general, we get +1 for block shed, pursuit tackle, +2 for play rec. And we do get an ability spot, which gives us extra pop. Defenders with this ability have a greater chance of forcing fumbles when landing perfect hit sticks. But before we get to simulating Super Bowl 61, we'll take a look at player stats from this season, and we'll start with the league leaders as Josh Allen, the 2-time now MVPs, won back-to-back MVP awards, led the league in passing with 4,745 yards, an astounding 42 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, 75% completion. Second in the NFL was Will Evans, the first-year starter, second-year quarterback, third-round pick out of UNC. We saw him in the last episode. Over 4,700 passing yards, 43 touchdown passes, which was more than the league MVP, although he did tied for the lead in interceptions with 20, tying there with Baker Mayfield, who's set to play in his first Super Bowl. And then third in passing was Joe Burrow, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes led the league with 52 touchdown passes, just absurd numbers there, over 4,600 passing yards. Jalen Hurts also broke 4,400. And then a few other guys here: Mayfield, Anthony Richardson, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, and Jared Goff, along with CJ Stroud. All these starting quarterbacks broke 4,000 passing yards, pretty much all of them above 70% completion. And now rushing, Saquon Barkley, the NFC Offensive Player of the Year, with 1,335 rushing yards, 23 rushing touchdowns, which is towards the most all-time in a single season. I think LaDainian Tomlinson had 28 back maybe 2 decades ago at this point. Saquon Barkley not too far behind that. Josh Jacobs just under 1,300 rushing yards with 14 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, third in the league with 1,257. Only 5 touchdown runs, though. You thought he would probably have more than that. Javonte Williams up here over 1,100. Derrick Henry now with the Giants. He signed a 2-year contract with them, I believe, in free agency. Still breaks 1,000 yards now in his 10th season. Also went for 10 touchdowns. Najee Harris also 10 touchdowns. Travis Etienne Jr., Joe Mixon, 2 AFC South backs. Pacheco, Rico Dowdle, Bucky Irving, Christian McCaffrey at just 1,024. So maybe seeing a little regression at this point in his career. Jahmyr Gibbs just barely breaks 1,000 yards, but also 17 touchdown runs. Brian Robinson down here with 15. Also 15 from Devin Achane on just 223 carries. So the volume there is pretty good, very efficient, although only a long of 10. More of a home run hitter. 23 rushing touchdowns from Lamar Jackson, the Offensive Player of the Year in the entire NFL. And now going to receiving, Jamar Chase led the league with 1,604 receiving yards at just 1 catch short of 100. That one's got to sting a little bit. 15 touchdown catches. Led all these top guys with 16.2 yards per catch. Khalil Shakir here at number 2. Puka Nacua, Cortland Sutton, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashee Rice, who I believe is set to hit the free agent market, as he led with 19 touchdown catches. Puka Nacua with 18. Drake London up here. Devontae Logan for the Cowboys. I think he was like a 5th or 6th round pick back in the year 1 draft, so this is his 2nd season, and he goes for over 1,096 catches, 10 touchdowns. Michael Wilson was the Panthers' pick in that dispersal draft where we distributed the Cardinals roster around the league. Michael Wilson catching on strong there. Jalen Waddle up here, Chris Olave, Jaden Reed, Devontae Smith, a bunch of 1,000-yard guys here. Wade Boone, last year's Offensive Rookie of the Year, 15 touchdown catches for him. And let's see, touchdowns. So it was 19 there for Rice leading the way. Nacua, Devontae Smith, Chase, Shakir, Ayuk. We're not even going to look at blocking. I'm pretty sure Ike Ekwonu did lead in sacks allowed, as he did with 20. Signed him to a $20 million contract annually, and he's given up 1 sack per million there. So we got to figure it out with him. I think we want to move him to the interior. So maybe we address tackle, but we'll see how it goes. Not sure who we'd put at center. We'd have to make a decision between Cade Moreland and Randy Samuels, 2 young guards we have, as Ernest Jones IV led in tackles this year with 129. Christian Harris of the Texans right behind him. Omar Spates of the Rams. Shaq Thompson, Adrian Cooper, Nakobe Dean now with the Saints. Jordan Brooks, Devin Lloyd, TJ Edwards, Jack Campbell, Robert Spillane. Tackles for loss goes to Brandon Fisk, as he also had 10.5 sacks. Jared Verse and Fisk, emerging as a very good tandem there for the Rams on their defensive line. Also have Daron Payne now. Chris Jones with 19, tied with Montez Sweat. Nnamdi Madubuike of the Baltimore Ravens, 16 tackles for loss, 15 sacks. All these guys with double-digit sacks pretty much. Derek Brown, 16 and 13. Glenn Hancock, second-year man out of Ole Miss. I want to say he was a first-round pick for the Seahawks. A very good season with 15 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks. Max Crosby, very similar production behind him. Brian Breesy, also up there with 15. Aiden Hutchinson, this year's NFL sack leader with 23.5. Also added 15 tackles for loss. TJ Watt, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah up here as well. Greg Rousseau, Brandon Dorless for the Falcons. Go over into sacks. Aiden Hutchinson, who I do believe is set to hit the free agent market, and he's definitely going to get a historic deal. Not sure if we're going to have the means necessary to make a run, but we're definitely going to explore that. When a player of his caliber hits the market, you definitely have to take a look, but maybe the Lions just go franchise tag on him. Myles Garrett, Alex Highsmith, Latu, Madubuike up here, as we said. Nick Bonito with 15 sacks there for the Broncos, a career year. Montez Sweat, Rousseau, Derek Brown, Glenn Hancock, TJ Watt, Jared Verse, who we mentioned, along there with Brandon Fiske. DeMarcus Lawrence now with the Giants. They signed him and Derrick Henry, 2 of the high-profile free agents from last season. Melton Williams up here, still with the Eagles. Zadarius Smith, as he's carved out a very long career here in the NFL. Interceptions, it goes to Marshawn Lattimore with 7, and then we have Derek Stingley Jr., DJ Turner II, and L'Jarius Sneed with 6 each. With 5, we have Edrin Cooper, who also is up there with tackles. So Edgerrin Cooper, one of the better seasons of all defensive players in the league. J.C. Horn and Leonard Harris up here. Second-year man out of Oklahoma. As the Jaguars look like they have a good draft pick there. He was a first or second round pick. Pass deflections, Cody Barton, Tremaine Edmonds, Devon Diablo, Edgerrin Cooper, Brett Aldridge, second-year man out of Oklahoma. A bunch of guys here with 2 forced fumbles, not even going to go down there. Safeties, a few guys here. Andrew Van Ginkel for our Snowhawks, our first safety in franchise history. Frankie Luvu, Josh Hines-Allen, Laiatu Latu with one, DeMarvion Overshone, and Jeremiah Owusu-Karamoa. Going to kicking, and we're not going to really spend too much time here, but Kaimi Fairbairn with a tremendous season going 32 for 33, and then Cameron Dicker going a perfect 27 for 27. Joshua Carty up here as well at 86%. Tremendous signing. He turned out to be along at 55. And Matt Ariza, the most punts in the league by far, as he racked up 3,400 punting yards. I think he punted for more than our quarterback threw for this season. As we will now move into our Snowhawks player stats. We'll go through that real quick, as that does prove to be true, as McDonald threw for 3,402. Matt Ariza bested him by 4 yards as he punted for 3,406. But McDonald, very similar production to his rookie season. 22 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. Practiced very good ball security throughout his rookie and second-year seasons. 64% completion with a rating at 93.1. Jake Browning, 4 out of 8, a touchdown for 83 yards. Exciting drive he led there as he came on for an injured Lucas McDonald in Week 17 against the Rams, I believe. Trey Benson, a new career high in rushing as we altered the playbook, which definitely helped him get more volume, as he ended with 646, only 3 touchdowns though, which was down from 9 from his second season. So I think running back an area we definitely want to bring in someone that's a little more dynamic and open up a little bit more for the offense. McDonald, very similar rushing production from last year at 530. Also scored twice on the ground. I think he had 6 rushing touchdowns as a first-year player. Kamara with 138. He's probably gone. Zamir White had a touchdown in just 8 carries. Receiving, Kadarius Toney actually ends up as our leading receiver, 824 yards, second with 5 touchdowns, and tied Marvin Harrison Jr. for the most catches with 67. Although Marvin Harrison Jr. did miss, I think, 2 or 3 games throughout the season, and he went under 1,000 yards for the first time in his career at just 797, and only 3 touchdowns to go along with that. Ray McLeod was a very good late free agent signing. Just before the season there, in the preseason we signed him. He earned a spot on the offense. He ended up catching 7 touchdowns, leading the team. And he had a very high average yards per catch at 13.6. And Mark Andrews, a very disappointing season after signing him to over $20 million annually. We'll have him for 3 more years. Only 8.4 yards per catch, under 550, and only 3 touchdown catches. We were hoping he'd be a nice red zone option for Lucas McDonald, but that never came to fruition. So hopefully he can take a step back forward next year, else we're in big trouble, as we need better contributions from our tight end, Tylan Wallace. One of the few guys on the roster from our original expansion roster. 11 catches for 203, 3 touchdowns as well. Trey Benson, 27 for 144, 2 touchdown catches. And Tip Ryman, 13 for 110 as our backup tight end. Blocking will just sort by downs played, as Cade Moreland, our first round pick at 11 overall, came in at 84 overall. Number 1 in true talent, but he gave up 7 sacks in just under 1,000 snaps. He started off very, very well in pass protection, but kind of dwindled as the season went on, as did most of our players. A lot of morale loss, a lot of regression. And Ikem Ekwonu was a big recipient in that front. A lot of performance boost detriments to his overall and just morale in general. So 20 sacks allowed after signing him to a huge contract. I think we're going to move him to the interior if we can, which would leave us with Randy Samuels or maybe even Cade Moreland maybe transitioning over to center. But we're going to keep our options open. Jamie McLean, first round pick, did not really play all that great, but only 7 sacks allowed in a way better performance than Ikem Ekwonu, his counterpart there at the tackle spots. Isaiah Adams played a little bit of center throughout the season, as he split time with Cade Mays pretty equal, with 4 sacks allowed each, although Adams did play 40 more snaps. Brady Christensen, we gave him a few starts at right tackle in place of Jamie McLean, just 1 sack allowed and 334 downs played. Going over to defense, Matthew Torrance with 107 tackles, led the team, 3 tackles for loss, a sack and interception, and 10 pass deflections as well for the second-year safety, second-round pick out of Auburn. Quay Walker really came on strong in the second half of the season with 95 tackles, 5 for loss, 3.5 sacks, 6 pass deflections, as he forms a very good linebacker duo here with Jerry Sexton, who, as we saw, won NFC Defensive Rookie of the Year, 85 tackles for him, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 6 pass deflections. Kendall Fuller here, 1-year signing for the veteran corner, 87 tackles, 5 for loss, 2.5 sacks, 2 interceptions. So pretty good production from the 10th-year corner out of Virginia Tech. And then we had rookie Nathan Scruggs here, second-round pick out of Ole Miss, 84 tackles for him, 1 interception, 9 pass deflections, and I think that interception came all the way back in week 1, if I'm not mistaken. Van Ginkel, 77 tackles, 71 for Jalen Thomas, 59 for Max Melton, and Joey Bosa up here with 55, as Van Ginkel led with 12 tackles for loss, Joey Bosa with 11, as these were 2 free agent signings who played very well, especially Quay Walker as well there towards the end of the season. Caleb Patton, the second-year man out of San Diego State, D-tackle, up here with 10 tackles for loss. Kwity Paye, Darius Robinson with 8 each. Leading in sacks was Joey Bosa, adding 10.5 more to his career total, as he was able to put together a complete season in a very good D-end rotation, which featured Kwity Paye, Joey Bosa, Xavier Thomas, and even Andrew Van Ginkel getting down there to rush the passer a little bit, as he ended with 6.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, as he continued to produce in really every phase as he's done throughout his career. 6 sacks for Caleb Patton, 4.5 for Robinson, 3.5 for Kwity Paye and Quay Walker, 2.5 for Fuller, 2 for Sexton, as he also tied for the team lead with 2 interceptions, along with Van Ginkel and Kendall Fuller. All 3 of these guys free agent signings. And then we had 1 from Torrance, Scruggs, and Melton. So our defense generated only 9 interceptions. You really need to step that up going ahead. Pass deflections, 10 from Torrance, 9 from Scruggs, 8 from Thompson, 7 from Fuller and Melton. Sexton and Walker each with 6. Forced fumbles, only 2 on the season, both from Joey Bosa. And we had that 1 safety from Van Ginkel, 1 defensive touchdown from Jerry Sexton. And then kicking, we already saw Joshua Carty. Tremendous season from him, going 26 for 30. One of those was blocked, but along at 55, as he was 7 for 10 from 50 or longer. And Matt Araiza, the most used punter in the league, as he out-punted Lucas McDonald's passing yardage at 50.8 yardage, 46 average net, which is very good, 16 in the 20, as he's been a true weapon for us. Kick returns, Dak Kitchens, 8 for 194, a better average than Perry Harris, the undrafted free agent out of Auburn, who was at 22.7. Punt returns, Dak Kitchens, 18 for 135, as he's been a very consistent performer for us on special teams and as a reserve corner. And then the final thing we're going to run through before we get to the Super Bowl simulation, we're going to take a look at the draft class and preview what to expect in the next episode, as it is going to be our Year 3 offseason episode. We're going to go through the free agency period, of course, then go to the NFL draft, where we do have 2 first-round picks, including number 3 overall, the top prospect in this year's draft, Tyson Wakefield, quarterback out of Notre Dame. I think in that mock draft we just saw, projected number 2 to the New Orleans Saints, as he is the top overall prospect. At number 2, we have Ben Davis, who I believe was projected to the Dallas Cowboys in that mock draft, the projected successor there to Dak Prescott for the Cowboys. So to our delight, that definitely helps us out, because we don't need a quarterback at 3. So realistically, we could have the pick of the litter at every other position, although Leonard Bailey is projected number 1 in the latest mock draft to the New England Patriots, as they seem to be set with Drake May. But for our pick at number 3, we do like Zach Joseph a little bit better as a pass rusher. 6'3", 259 speed rusher with A pursuit, D-zone coverage, solid to good in every category except acceleration, where he is great to elite. So that's judged, based on outside linebackers, but he's probably a D-end in our scheme, which would put those numbers a little bit better compared to the other players at his position. But already A for awareness, finesse, move, and pursuit, B for play rec and hit power, and his coverage ratings aren't bad, with that man in zone, both at D, so maybe potential as an off-ball linebacker as well, but someone I like, getting after the passer a little bit better with that A finesse move. The block shot going to be a C or D. Hopefully, it ends at C, but Zach Joseph, a tantalizing pass rush prospect there, projected at number 4 overall. Currently, we have him at 80% scouted, so once we get 10 more percent on him, we'll then get that talent grade. And if that comes back as a top 5 talent, I think we are going to be sold at selecting Zach Joseph at number 3 overall if we don't trade down, as that may be a scenario we explore as well. We have another quarterback here, Cliff Bost out of UCLA, as 3 of the top 5 prospects in this year's class are quarterbacks. I think that's the same case as last season as well. And then we get a couple D-ends here in Percy Bronson, 6'6", 274 out of Boise State. Lance Shivers out of Ohio State at 6'4", 267, whereas he's a speed rusher to Bronson being a power rusher. And then we have a bunch of safeties here in the top of the draft. It's a very, very strong safety class. We'll actually just go over to that position entirely, as Kari Boone out of USF, the top-ranked safety hybrid, number 8 overall on the board, 6'2", 205, 21 years old. Looks to be a solid to good athlete in most of those categories, with B awareness, C block shed zone coverage, B tackle, and that man coverage going to be B to D. So he looks to be a pretty solid safety prospect, nothing over the top. And then we have Eric Wembley a few spots behind him at number 12. Also that hybrid archetype with B-man coverage, B tackle to start. Looks to be a slightly better athlete than Boone, with A, awareness, C, block shed, B, man, B, tackle. So pretty good traits to start with, especially with that hybrid mold. You know, those guys are typically pretty well-rounded. Tevin Graham out of Stanford had a draft story on him. I believe he was named MVP of the College All-Star game according to the draft news. Looks to be a decent athlete with B, awareness, zone coverage to start, C, pursuit, tackle. Another solid safety there projected in the first round. Then at strong safety, we have Mario Mentor out of Virginia Tech. And he also had a very positive story on him regarding the All-Star game. It said he shut down everyone that he faced, you know, every opposing receiver. And he is a zone archetype at 5'10", 199. Good to great in jumping and speed with solid to good in change of direction and strength. A, awareness, C, play rec, hit power, and zone. So cluster of decent safeties here towards the top of the draft. Also Tommy Elliott at 16 on the overall board, another hybrid guy. 5'10", 210, B, hit power, A, man, C, tackle. Great to elite agility, acceleration, jumping, speed. Look to be in the solid to great range with A, awareness, man, B, pursuit, C, tackle, D, block shed, and the zone coverage at B or D. So I think testing for these safeties is going to really dictate a lot. And we are also going to have, I think, like pick 28 or so after the Eagles fell there in the playoffs. So if one of these safeties slips to that phase of the draft, maybe we select one of these guys. But ultimately, I think Zach Joseph, as we said here at right outside linebacker, someone we'll look at as a pass rusher. Maybe not the biggest need, but just based on his grade at top 5 projected, if he comes back to match that in talent grade, I think he's going to be very high on our board. And we might be sold on him depending on how it goes in free agency. But for now, we'll go back to the overall board, kind of work our way down at our first round targets as we ended up here. Braxton Thomas, the top tackle on the board at 9th, but we like Jason Kirkpatrick a little bit more. 6'8", 327, 21 years old out of Oklahoma State. You love that size at the tackle spot. Already pretty well developed with A, awareness, impact block, C, pass block, and B, run block. And based on physical projections, one of the better offensive tackles in the class, and traits-wise, I think he backs that up as well. Everything at C or above, the run block finesse going to be C or D, and that pass block power going to be B or C. So I really like Kirkpatrick. I'm not sure how free agency is going to go. Like I said, I think we want to move Ike Emekonwu to the interior, which would open up a tackle spot. But at the same time, someone like Frank Ragnow might be on the market. So maybe we just go another interior lineman and try and hold out that Emekonwu can shore it up there at the tackle spot. But we do have some flexibility there. I think if we stand pat at 3, Zach Joseph really the only player in play at that spot. Otherwise, we might trade down maybe to like 8 or 10 or so, and then maybe take Kirkpatrick, depending on how things go. But I also like Jimmy Gallery a lot, the top corner now, as he surpasses Walter Kidd for that title at this point. Jimmy Gallery, a two-way player there for the Fighting Irish, coming off a Heisman Trophy, as he channeled his inner Travis Hunter, B catching, C man, A to C for press and zone, as he is a zone archetype. Great to elite acceleration. The speed, though, only decent to solid, although he does have good strength at the corner spot. Played on the outside, played in the slot, played on offense, so he does provide some versatility. Definitely, one of those type of players you can market really well, who's going to make an impact and going to impact ticket sales as well, which we might need at this point. And then we talked about Walter Kidd, or I at least mentioned him, corner out of Oregon. He was the top guy all year long before being recently passed up by the aforementioned Jimmy Gallery, but good traits to start with: B catching, man, end zone, C press. Great to elite for speed, which you love as an outside corner with size. B man, and pretty good traits to start, as we said, although the awareness and play rec C to F, but that block shed potentially at B. But if we don't get a corner in free agency, I definitely think we're in line to draft one this year. Max Melton, Nathan Scruggs have been solid. Even Kendall Fuller filling in for a season was really good, but we need a true number 1, and I'm not sure if Gallery or Kidd is that guy, but if not, hopefully we can find someone in free agency. And then we get to the top receiver here, Markel Pierman out of USC, 6'3", 207, C catching traffic, but F for deep route. That release going to be D or F, and nothing really overpowering as an athlete. You like the A juke move, A spec catch with C medium route. Stiff arm, break tackle, and vision going to be up there as well. So definitely fits the bill of a playmaker, which we definitely need in our offense. Desperate for that. But I think for someone like Pierman, with definitely some flaws in his game, to be a candidate there in the first round, he's going to have to test off the charts. And I'm not sure if he's going to be that guy to do so. And then behind him, we do have a cluster of receivers there towards the end of the first round. There's also Philip Lang here, receiver out of Florida. Only D catching and catching traffic, although A for deep route, B for release. Great to elite for agility and speed, so very dynamic athlete with some deep route capabilities. But he's only going to be a one-phase player, getting open there in the deep route with D short route, F for medium route. And he can't really catch either at D catching traffic, D catching. So as dynamic as Lang might have been at the college level, I think at 5'8", what was it, 5'8", 192. I'm not sure how a guy with his stature and just, limited skill set pans out in the NFL, though the potential is definitely there. And then we have Luke Day, who's 6'2", 229. A for catching traffic, B for catching, D for deep route, and then C for release. Good to great for speed, great to elite for strength, with A spec catching traffic, B catching short route, C release. So definitely a decent prospect here. And that size at 6'2", 229, that's quite the build here from Luke Day, who is a physical receiver, but kind of like Pierman, it's really going to come down to testing for these receivers. And as we already have most of these guys 80% scouted, so I think by the combine, we should have talent grades back on all these players, which will definitely make it easier to decipher these prospects. Michael Aiken, he had a negative draft story on him, which noted his drops, but he does have A for deep route, B for release, and catching traffic. But you see that F for catching, great to elite for agility, good to great for speed, and does have some nice traits. But that F catching, D for short route, F for medium route, I really can't get over those big deficiencies in some of these receiving prospects games. And also Carlos Alvarez, who has dropped on the board quite a bit as this season has gone on, but good traits there with A, catching traffic, catching, B for deep route release, and crazy size at 6'3", 233 out of Florida State. Great to elite for jumping and strength. And like Day, these physical receivers, more of a well-rounded skill set, although, the athleticism probably isn't going to be there. But as I said, with this receiver class, we're going to have to wait and see how it goes with testing, kind of much like the safety class, before we start deciphering some of these prospects and seeing who we want to attack maybe in the first round. As we kind of get to the end of the first round projected here into the second round, we'll kind of just go position by position. Mike Cheeks is the top running back out of Oregon, and we do have the luxury of maybe taking the top running back in the draft there with the Eagles pick towards the end of the first round. We talked about receivers. So tight end, I mentioned him in a past episode, but Bryce Herman, someone I'm very high on. 6'4", 261 out of Oklahoma, just 21 years old, possession tight end. Good to great in 4 of the 6 athletic categories with pretty good skills to start. B impact blocking, B short route with A trucking. And I think the size, the athletic combo with Bryce Herman, plus his young age at just 21, I think his ceiling is going to be very high. And I would like to get him and maybe groom him behind Mark Andrews for a couple seasons. We talked about Braxton Thomas and Jason Kirkpatrick here at left tackle, the top 2 projected in this class. A couple interior linemen of interest. Joel Adams, number 10 on the overall board, as he's been projected top 15 pick, I think, in every mock draft so far. Carter Harris, 6'3", 326 out of Louisville, a projected first-round right guard. Going over to defense now, we saw these D ends in Bailey, Shivers projected in the top 10. Also Santiago Diaz at 28. And then we like Isaiah Kerr, a power rusher out of Texas A&M, currently 32nd on the overall board. Percy Bronson, Rayshawn Hardy, a late day 2, early day 3 guy. Marcus Matthews, a D tackle prospect that we have targeted for day 3. Quincy Valentine, 6'5", 313. I'm sorry, 6'6", 313 out of Cal, just 21 years old, but he also had a draft story noting how dominant he was at the college all-star game. Also, dominant performance against Carter Harris, that right guard we just noted out of Louisville, who is also a projected top 5 or first-round pick. Valentine with great to elite strength and pretty good otherwise, athletically. So D tackle, not the necessarily biggest need for us, but Valentine looks to be a very good prospect, and maybe he will be the best player available at our second pick, although I don't know if he'll slip that far. At middle linebacker, Deshaun DeBose was named linebacker of the year, 6'1", 237 out of USC, but we like Tashawn Gross, field general middle linebacker out of Arizona State. He was one of our 3 players we did our super focused scouting on, came back with B block shed, B tackle. That zone coverage going to be at B or C, and looks to be a very good athlete with great to elite for jumping and speed, good to great for acceleration, agility, and the traits look very good. A awareness, B block shed, man, tackle, hit power, A impact block. That play rec going to be A or B. The zone coverage going to be B or C, along with finesse moves and catching. So I think Gross might be someone we target towards the end of day 2, early day 3. We scored on Jerry Sexton last year as a 3rd-round pick. Middle linebacker out of UW. Maybe we can do again with Tashawn Gross out of Arizona State. We talked about Zach Joseph. There's also Ahmad Woodson, who looks to be the best off-ball linebacker in the class. Jimmy Gallery passes Walter Kidd as the top corner. Also JoJo Presley, fellow Notre Dame corner there, along with Gallery. Then also Melo Gillespie out of UCLA, although he's fallen a little bit. Then we also have Titus McGill out of Pitt. This looks to be a very strong corner class, especially at the top. Then we already talked about the safeties as well. So we have the number 3 overall pick. I think Zach Joseph probably the target, but I would be inclined to trade down and just continue building with our draft capital. We've been able to carry multiple first-round picks in each of the first 2 off seasons following our inaugural season, so that might be the plan of attack, but free agency is going to have a huge indication of how we attack this 2027 NFL draft, where we have number 3 overall, and like I said, I think 28th overall or something in that range. And now to get down to it and officially put a bow on this year 3 season, we're going to advance past Super Bowl 61 as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Denver Broncos face off against each other, as the Buccaneers did win it a few years back, of course during the Tom Brady era. And we'll check the score here. It looks like the Broncos did take it, as they do 20-13, as Bo Nix brings the Super Bowl back to Denver. Tampa Bay only manages 149 yards of total offense, as they're outgained by over 200. Only 121 passing yards for the Bucs, 28 yards of rushing offense. Denver 225 through the air, 136 on the ground, as they just absolutely took a hold of this game. Bo Nix goes 225, a touchdown and interception, as he completed 21 out of 30. Baker Mayfield, a very bad game, 10 out of 22 for just 121, a touchdown and an interception. Javonte Williams, 12 for 59, as he averaged 4.9. The only rushing touchdown came from Jim Edwards, 6 foot 259, second-year fullback out of South Carolina. He had 3 carries as well for 12 yards. Cortland Sutton, 6 for 71, as he led in catches and yards, although the only receiving touchdown for Tampa Bay came from Chris Godwin, and the only one from Denver came from Antoine Barrett, second-year running back out of Notre Dame, that coming from the 3-yard line. Blocking, we'll see who gave up some sacks here. Taylor Moton, free agent signing, gave up a couple. Leading in tackles was Antoine Winfield Jr. with 9 tackles for loss. 3 from Zach Allen, the longtime Denver Bronco. 2 from Cody Barton. 2 from Cole Holcomb. Also, Khalil Mack gets a Super Bowl here with the Broncos. Kalijah Kancey with 2 for Tampa Bay. Sacks, it's going to be 2 from Odafe Owe. Free agent signing this past offseason. Zach Allen with 1.5. Za'Darius Smith with 1 coming off a Pro Bowl season. And then going to interceptions, 1 from Cole Holcomb, 1 from Jermaine Pratt. As Cole Holcomb, 5 tackles, 2 for loss, and an interception, also a pass deflection, as the Denver Broncos defense just absolutely dominated in this performance, much like their recent Super Bowl win over the Carolina Panthers, as the Denver Broncos are Super Bowl 61 champions. I want to say the first time since the late 90s, I think, when they had one with Elway. But of course, after that, more recently, they had the one with Peyton Manning, as he was able to ride off into the sunset. And here's the quick season recap, as the Denver Broncos win Super Bowl 61 20-13 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as they capture their 4th Lombardi trophy. Super Bowl MVP does go to Cole Holcomb, as Josh Allen has now won back-to-back MVP awards. Nick Sirianni, Coach of the Year after a 16-1 regular season, although the Eagles failed to win a playoff game for the 3rd consecutive season. Offensive Player of the Year goes to Lamar Jackson. Defensive Player of the Year, Aiden Hutchinson. Offensive Rookie of the Year goes to number 1 overall pick Byron Snow. And then Defensive Rookie of the Year goes to Jerry Sexton of our Salt Lake City Snowhawks. And now we're here at staff moves, as we did decide to fire both of our coordinators. Really need to shake it up a little bit, bring some more experience, some more expertise at these spots. So we'll go in and look, see if we have any former head coaches to hire here, as Jonathan Gannon is on the market, but he's someone we would attack, for our defensive coordinator spot. He might be the only. We also have Mike McDonald here. He took Seattle to the Super Bowl in his first season back in year 1, and then was fired after getting the number 1 overall pick. So he's definitely someone to consider on the defensive side of the ball. Brian Callahan, formerly of the Titans. Raheem Morris. Also have Gerard Mayo, Antonio Pierce, Dan Quinn. So a bunch of coaches to choose from. I think I do like Dan Quinn the best as our defensive coordinator, potentially, as I think we will check him out. He has 5 talents for staff modifications, 3 for offensive development, 3 for defensive development. So he's at 5.33, better there than Dennis Allen, better than Antonio Pierce and Gerard Mayo. Raheem Morris, though, at 5.32. Brian Callahan. So I think Callahan we're going to look at as our offensive coordinator. All these other guys are defensive-minded guys, I believe. So I think it will have to be Callahan by default for offensive coordinator. And he does have 3 talents for staff builder, 3 for offensive development, 2 for defensive development. As we have hired Brian Callahan now as our offensive coordinator, we get the former head coach of the Tennessee Titans, I think former offensive coordinator, was it for Cincinnati at one point, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And now for defensive coordinator, I think we'll go with Dan Quinn. That experience as a head coach didn't quite work out there in Washington, but I think he's going to be a long-term defensive coordinator for us, as we hire Dan Quinn, Brian Callahan, and now John Gruden to complete this staff. And I think with these 3 excellent football minds, we're in store for some big things going ahead. But we do have a couple more things to get through before we officially close out year 3 and close out this episode. We're going to upgrade some of our practice squad guys. And we're going to start with Chauncey Washington, I believe, as you see him there, number 88. He was a 7th-round pick, projected undrafted free agent, and we loved what we saw from his combine testing, so we took a flyer on him. He originally did have hidden development, but I guess since he just was stashed on the practice squad, that just went down to normal, as it's kind of a bummer. But Chauncey Washington, a high upside guy at just 23 years old now, 6'7", 236, very good athlete, 89 speed, 90 acceleration. Not quite sure where to go for him, as we're just going to go all in on his pass catching abilities. So we'll just go into possession twice here, and it does put him up to a 63 now. We get +3 for medium route. We'll go right back into it, as he's now up to a 64 overall, and that will give us +2 catching traffic and short route, as Washington will compete for probably a tight end 3 spot next year. If not, just probably end up on the practice squad again. Garrison Jones, I think a 6th-round draft pick back from year 1, corner out of UCF, now at 69 overall. I think we'll just go back into man coverage and just keep going into that archetype, keep him a scheme fit, as he's now up to a 70 overall, going to compete for a roster spot probably as like a 5th-string corner, special teams type player. And then we have Will McMahon, I believe, undrafted out of Wake Forest, still ACC, we'll take it, as he's pretty decent all around, no major strengths, but the pass block power, a clear weakness. So I think we have to go into power here, as he does go up to a 69 overall, and we get +1 across the board in a few different categories, which will now bring us to Ty Eubanks, who was a 7th-round pick back in year 1, 6'4", 344, just an absolute mauler there along the offensive line. And the finesse rating is very, very low, so we're going to go into agile and try to clear up those blemishes in his game, as we get +2 run block finesse, +1 for pass block finesse, as he'll try and compete for a roster spot next season. Dorian Golston, undrafted rookie, receiving back. We do like him, had a decent preseason, and I think we'll try and go to the elusive back, try and get him a little more dynamic with the ball in his hands as he goes up to a 65. Another guy who will compete for a roster spot, gets that +4 for spin move. You love to see that. And I think just a couple more here, as we have Taylor Tyson. He was an undrafted free agent out of Kansas State, 6'4", 314, and that pass block power at 60. That needs a lot of work, so we'll go power. Hopefully that one goes up a lot, as just 2 for run block power, and that pass block power just got +1. So Tyson stays at a 64 overall, which puts him behind the curve, compared to those other linemen who are going to try and compete for a roster spot. Now Eric Alden, D tackle out of LSU, 7th-round pick from year 1. And we'll probably just go in a run stopper, get that block shed up, as he's now up to a 64. Unlikely to ever, get a roster spot on our team, but +3 finesse move, you like that, but still a long shot with the depth in front of him. So we've hired some new coaches here and our coordinators. We went over our practice squad players, so we had some upgrades for. Now we'll close this episode out by taking a look at the retirements, as we have Jack Conklin at the top here, Stephon Gilmore, CJ Ham, Rob Havenstein, former Ram, now retires with the Seahawks. Javon Hargrave retires with the Commanders. Justin Tucker after 15 seasons. Jack Thompson retires off a Pro Bowl appearance. Devontae Adams retires, maybe a future Hall of Famer. Alex Arma, Jake Matthews, Teron Armstead, maybe a future Hall of Famer in his own right, a long time standout left tackle. Alvin Kamara retires as a Snowhawk, 10 years in the league, of course, the first 9 with the Saints. Joel Bitonio, a long-time interior lineman, guard for the Browns most of the time, retires as a Buccaneer. CJ Mosley retires as a Brown. Garrett Bowles, some free agents here, Graham Glasgow, Tyler Lockett, Shaq Lawson, Matthew Judon, Connor McGovern, Quandre Diggs, Austin Eckler. He spent a year with our Snowhawks. David Andrews, Mike Hilton, Mitchell Trubisky, Derek Carr, Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz as 2 of those Philadelphia Eagles from that 2017 team that won the Super Bowl. They both retire. Cody Whitehair, Emmanuel Ogbah, Kareem Hunt, Tyler Shatley. He was a Snowhawks expansion pick back in episode 1 from the Jaguars. Jimmy Garoppolo, Jordan Hicks, DeMonte Casey, Cameron Fleming, and Matt Filer as they ran out the retirement. So not too many of note. Of course, all these guys pretty relevant in the league over the course of a long time, but none that I don't think are going to really be standout Hall of Famers in this class. Maybe Armstead, Devontae Adams, Justin Tucker, of course, has a case as probably the best kicker of all time, but other than that, not as strong as last year's retirement crop. But still, of course, we are seeing a lot of turnover as we go along, as we're set to enter the year 3 offseason in the next episode. But this is where I'm going to leave you, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I'll just scroll down mock draft 4 here as we close out this episode. Our Salt Lake City Snowhawks to be selecting at number 3 overall. A lot of flexibility in this year's class. We also have Philadelphia's first-round pick, which is going to be quite down the board here, as we get all the way down to 28. So we have pick number 3 and pick 28. Let me know what you think we should do in the draft. Should we stand pat at 3, select a player? Should we package these picks and maybe try and work our way up and down the board? Who are some prospects you like? I'm very interested for all feedback, and let me know what you think we should do in the looming year 3 offseason. But as always, everybody, it's been real and be well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.